All right, so a deep bow to everyone who's here. Please feel welcome if you're in the Discord to share your camera if you like. And if you are watching on YouTube, especially if you're watching live, say hello. Don't be shy to reach out, make your presence known. If you're not able to figure out how to use Discord or your camera, or if you have any issues during this live session, just hop over to the YouTube channel, and that's the easiest way to follow along live and avoid any technical difficulties that might come up. The great joy and the one of the main supporting factors, conditions in this practice and in this event is we have so many people who are gathering together live. We have that encouragement and that feeling of inspiration to be a part of something that's happening in the here and now, other people. Um, the Sangha power, right? It's like when we do something alone, it can be so difficult, it can be so frustrating. But when we have a good friend on the path with us, or even if we know that a good friend is also kind of dealing with things and continuing, we feel inspired and feel supported. So there's a lot of support right now in all of us gathering for this purpose of understanding the Dharma, understanding the truth, entering the gateless gate, Chan. This activity and this practice is not about grasping anything. It's about not grasping. It's about detachment. It's about to be aware of what's happening in the present moment. So you can be aware of your breathing, for example. You can be aware of your seeing itself, the seeing faculty taking place, not the particular content of what you see, if it's blue or red, or if you like it or don't like it, but you can be aware that you're able to see right now. And wow, that's a great joy, in the same way that if you couldn't see, it would be a great misery. It would be very unsettling. It would be very upsetting, right? And it's not, that doesn't relate to the content that we see. Of course, we can see pleasant or unpleasant content, and we need to be aware of how we consume that. But what I encourage you to look at during this live stream and during this session is the faculty itself. So the seeing itself, the hearing itself. Why? Because it always exists in the present moment, and it's also not so entangled in complicated thinking or dualistic points of view. And it's also something we can nourish ourselves with while we're here. Maybe you don't understand something, and that's okay. You still have an opportunity to be supported by the Sangha power, the community power, the collective mindfulness power that we have here in the present moment. Many people gathering, right? And to nourish yourself with your seeing, with your hearing, with your breathing, with your willingness to put down what you get stuck on, what you get attached to. Oh, I'm hungry. Oh, I'm thirsty. Oh, I need to use the bathroom. Well, you also don't need to do it. And just to enjoy and nourish that freedom. I need to take a drink. Well, no, I don't need to take a drink. And rather than getting stuck in that friction of I need to, I don't need to, etc., just put it down and breathe and be aware. And then put down, putting down. So yesterday we read through some of this book, The Life and Heart of Chan Practice, by one of the preeminent Zen teachers of the modern era, Shifu Sheng. His book, Footprints in the Snow, is actually like an autobiography of how he stepped into the monastic life and how he became a monk and stayed a monk in the face of war and difficulties and a lot of things. Inspired me quite a bit to take on the role in the life of a monk, of living as a monk. So this teacher I find inspires me a lot. And we're reading this entering the gateless gate. And it's a bit of an introduction into Zen Buddhism. And for me, Zen Buddhism is something really nice to have in the periphery and in the forefront of my life. Okay, so instead of just going towards some sensual desire or some worry about um, my life or some kind of complicated thinking or some thing I experienced in the past, right? Some difficulty. Well, oh, how about Zen Buddhism? What is Zen Buddhism? What is a Zen Buddhist meditation? What is a Zen Buddhist philosophy? What is a Zen Buddhist community? But for me, this is something that's quite interesting and nourishing to be involved with and to know about. And this reading that we're going through has a very clear introduction into what Zen Buddhism is, while also sharing a lot of insight and teachings. So we're very fortunate. Before we start with the reading, does anyone have an important question to bring up or to ask? Sweet. So let's continue with our reading in this invitation, this introduction. When Matsu became a Zen master, he advocated that the ordinary mind is the path. Whether you are walking, standing still, sitting, or laying down, everything is Chan practice, Zen practice. You should not intentionally practice to gain anything, nor get involved in what is right or wrong, in grasping and rejecting. This is the practice of what he calls the ordinary mind. Although Huineng and some other early Zen masters following him de-emphasized sitting meditation practice, most Chan masters did practice intensely. For example, In the monastic rules of Chan Master Pai Chang, the immediate successor of Chan Master Matsu, there were regulations concerning daily sitting meditation practice. Even though there were no accounts of how many hours they sat daily, their meditation platforms were built so people could lay down when necessary. From this, we can presume that the monks spent most of their time sitting. Practice also guided the monks' daily routines and their work in the community. A famous motto passed down through the generations from Pai Chang's community insists, "A day without work is a day without food." We know from records that the monks supported themselves in part by working in rice fields and chopping up firewood in the mountains. Actually, this aspect of making your daily work the practice of Chan was not something that Pai Chang created. Hui Nang himself also lived this practice. Before meeting the fifth patriarch Hung Jen, Hui Nang chopped firewood for a living. After meeting Hung Jen, he was sent not to the meditation hall but to the kitchen to grind rice. This is an interesting idea, so that we think about to maybe we want to ordain and become a Buddhist monk, or we think about our idealistic spiritualist practice, right? Our ideal spiritual practice. Well, of course, I'm going to go and meditate all the time or something like that. But actually, it can be more likely that you're going to work yourself up into a bit of a tizzy if you're trying to force yourself to meditate all the time. Meditating all the time is exceedingly difficult. It's very, 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 very difficult. Even if you have direct community support and a teacher that's guiding you and working with you, it's very difficult. So, what might be more applicable for a lot of people and more realistic in joining a meditation community or even becoming a monk or something like that is being prepared to work, being prepared to do diligent cleaning and sewing and doing good deeds more and more, doing good deeds continuously, doing acts of generosity, to share, to offer out your body and your mind for the benefit of others, not just forcing yourself to meditate all the time, which can be problematic for a variety of reasons. But I've met a lot of people who have spent, long times in these institutions or in these places where they are, forced to meditate a lot or forced to attend, these really intensive meditation retreats, that's like their practice. And it doesn't necessarily lead to insight or to wisdom. It's more of a full spectrum practice, a full spectrum approach to life. And if you're rejecting a part of your life by just, forcing yourself to meditate all the time, something like that, you, like I said, you're not too unlikely to work yourself up into a tizzy. And that's not going to be, you're not going to have any practical benefits from that as well. Whereas when you're doing this diligent work, when you're doing good deeds more and more, when you're practicing mindfulness and detachment to do good deeds more and more, at least you're going to make some material blessings and some blessings inside as well that are not so contrived, but are more based on generosity, not your feverish struggle to gain something and to get something, to have this higher attainment, this special meditation experience. So after Hui Nang met Hung Jen and kind of was introduced to this, joined this monastery and was accepted to stay there, he was not sent to the meditation hall, but to the kitchen to grind rice. During his years working in the kitchen, Hui Nang cultivated his mind, teaching himself to maintain a stable and concentrated state of awareness. In doing so, he let go of the ups and downs of emotions and moods. Achieving this clear awareness is important because only in this mental state will a practitioner have a chance to become enlightened. Of course, practitioners also need correct guiding views. This is a really interesting topic. Let's see where it goes. But correct guiding views. And I run into a lot of people online and in my work, right, where there are these issues where people are quite sincere about the practice and in their intentionality to be involved in the spiritual path, but they have really unskillful guiding views, right? They have views about psychic powers or deities or beings or what have you, all these different chakras and kundalinis and psychic powers and all that. So it's really problematic if you don't have some kind of guiding views to direct you on your path. Even before meeting Hung Jian, Hui Nang had experienced an initial enlightenment, which occurred when he overheard someone reciting a verse from the Diamond Sutra. From his enlightenment experience, he understood attachment and detachment, as well as the difference between self and no self. These understandings became his guiding views. Does anyone have some guiding views that they may feel are that they're working with or that are beneficial for them? Anyone here in the Discord or YouTube, you can share a guiding view that you find to be worthwhile or workable for you. And leave a comment or unmute your mic and say what one of your guiding views you're working with.
And just deep spirituality and true warriorship in the interest of love and friendship and sincerity, and it's been very powerful for me.
Okay. Anyone else? Some guiding views that you're working with? Simple is better. Jerry said, "Noble friendship is the whole of the path." I like that a lot. Definitely. Sangha power, right? Relationship power, mutual community support power, redistribution of resources, your spiritual friendship, material and minderial. Go ahead, Austin.
Um, I feel I struggle with finding something, a principle, a guiding principle, but one that I feel I'm beginning to resonate with is taking, and it's partially something I've learned from you, is trying to take every day, moment by moment, and ultimately my goal is to attain peace and joy, but instead of focusing on what's preventing me from doing that or what I need to do that, I just focus on where I am in this moment and try to feel that regardless of my outside circumstances.
Hmm. It's a powerful view because we truly not cannot determine or control what those outside circumstances are going to be. And so it goes from a place where the inability to control outside circumstances is confusing and worrisome and very real, right? A real situation that we're dealing with, to that awareness of our inability to control outside circumstances being an entry point to freedom and actualization of the path and a kind of curiosity. Because if we could control the situation fully, it would be much less curious. Right? It would be much less interesting if we could, dream the dream we wanted to all the time. Well, eventually it's going to get old.
The example that comes to mind for that is in video games, you can unlock cheat codes that give you superpowers and allow you to do anything, and that immediately makes the video game stop being enjoyable. So that makes sense to me. It wouldn't be enjoyable if I could just control everything.
Right. But in some case, this is that superpower. Because it's, regardless, that very nature of an inability to control, the uncertainty, the unsatisfactoriness of the body and the mind, the impermanence of anything, everything, right? This instability becomes solidity because we are aware. We are non-conditional. The gateless gate, we enter into it. Because we're taking it, like you said, in a very simple way, but moment by moment, breath by breath. And that's inclusive of practical ways of thinking and contextual situations and all that. It doesn't exclude any of that. It's not like this harshness to reject aspects of our experience or aspect of our, situation we find ourselves in. But it's that taking them all to be entry points to this moment by moment awareness. And then a lot of times, if you're living a skillful life, if you're doing good deeds more and more, if you're being mindful regularly, if you're practicing to not get super involved in reactivity, right? Self-fixated reactivity, you find yourself in a space like this, right? Or you find yourself at a Buddhist temple. Or you find yourself going for a walk in nature with a lot of gentleness and levity and sweetness. And you can just enter that so much and enjoy that so much because of that moment by moment, breath by breath mindset. So these guiding views are really essential, and we need correct guiding views. A couple sharings on YouTube. Sharinia said, "One in all in one." Robert said, "Be here now," and it's tattooed on their wrist. Heather said, "I just know that my understanding comes so much quicker when I'm more involved in the Sangha. It's that Sangha power." Sangha power. And Malal said, "No guarantees." Okay. Let's continue. Even before meeting one of his teachers, Hui Nang had experienced an initial enlightenment, which occurred when he overheard someone reciting a verse from the Diamond Sutra. From his enlightenment experience, he understood attachment and detachment, as well as the difference between self and no self. These understandings became his guiding views. I like this perspective that we can rely on our guiding views even when stuff kind of gets messed up or difficult. that we don't rely on those messed up or difficult or, the kind of neurotic things that we get involved with in our mind and in our perceptions and our mistakes, right? It can be a very real mistake, but not using those as our guiding views. Just more and more neurotic and self-fixated, but rather self and no self, attachment and detachment. And so we continue going in the direction that we want to go in and that we have an aspiration to go in, not just getting caught up in a web and then staying there because, oh, this is a web, I'm supposed to be caught. You don't need to be caught. The second approach of Chan does advocate the practice of sitting meditation. This approach begins with the traditional view that wisdom and samadhi are different. From this point of view, wisdom is generated from samadhi. According to the fifth patriarch Ungjen's treatise on the essentials of practice, quote, to engage in the practice, one must know the principle of the Dharma. It's a capital D, so the principle of the truth or the principle of the Buddhist teaching, the Buddha Dharma. Guarding the mind is most crucial. This practice teaches people to guard their innate true mind. If the true mind is well guarded, delusion does not arise. So we guard and we protect and we nourish that true mind. That is not someone, not something, not some place, not some time. These can also could be some guiding views. When delusion does not arise, the notion of I and mine will naturally dissolve and fundamental ignorance is extinguished. You then become a Buddha. This is actually a form of samadhi practice. For those who don't remember or know, samadhi is that absorption state, that deep state of a coming together of concentration and relaxation. Deeply aware, deeply present, deeply attending to, and deeply relaxed. So it's an absorption state, samadhi. In the Song of Samatha, samatha is samadhi-focused meditation, so concentration, relaxation, meditation. Oftentimes mindfulness of breathing. In the Song of Samatha, Great Master Yung Chia talks about clarity and quiescence and clarity. Clarity is quan, or contemplation, a practice of contemplating and illuminating your mind. Quiescence is chi, or cessation, a practice of ending delusionary scattered thoughts. When using this method, if you reach a point when not a single thought arises, then your mind can become extremely clear and bright. This is when the state of quiescence and clarity, contemplation and cessation are simultaneous. It is possible at this time for enlightenment to manifest. Okay, so some of those we've worked in the past with a Hua To, or that questioning practice of what is this? What is your original face? What is my original face before my parents were born? So we contemplate, we turn the mind around, and we illumine the mind itself. We illumine awareness itself. What is this? Not just delusive nonsense and stories and beliefs and, waiting for a chimpanzee to break through the door and mess up this computer. You don't need to wait for that. You need to be ready for that. How to be ready for that? By stopping worrying about the chimpanzee and turning the mind around. Okay? And what a joy it would be, maybe not a chimpanzee, but a very small, not dangerous primate to come in here and mess everything up. And our mind is just like that, right? So then we go to the quiescence or the cessation, so that ending delusionary scattered thoughts, ending the fixation and the importance and the energy that we're feeding to this neurotic, self-fixated thinking. Contemplation and cessation. Illumination and disentanglement. So when using this kind of method, if you reach a point when not a single thought arises, then your mind can become extremely clear and bright. This is when the state of quiescence and clarity, contemplation and cessation, so the ending of delusionary scattered thoughts, the allowing of them to dissolve and relax rather than to potentiate and being more involved with them and stimulating them. When the state of quiescence and clarity, that is, contemplation and cessation, are simultaneous, it is possible at this time for enlightenment to manifest. The two major methods of Chan that have come to us from China are the method of silent illumination and the method of the Koan and Huatou. In China, the development of each method's distinct characteristics branched into two distinct schools of Chan Buddhism, namely the Caotung, also known as Soto in Japanese, and the Linji, also known as Rinzai in Japanese schools. Okay, so these two major branches of Zen Buddhism that exist into the modern era, and that is Soto and Rinzai, or Linji and silent illumination. Okay. Let's listen to a sound of the bell. Come back to our breathing and our present moment experience. Our contemplation and cessation. Silent illumination chant. The term silent illumination, or Mo Chao, is associated with the Sung Dynasty master Hung Chi Cheng Chu. However, the practice itself may be traced back at least as far as Bodhidharma. In his treatises, Two Entries and the Four Practices, Bodhidharma introduced the concept of entry by principle. The meaning of this concept is very close to the underlying concept of silent illumination. So entry into the path, or entry into the gateless gate by principle. Leaving behind the false, returning to the true. Make no discriminations between self and others. In contemplation, one's mind should be stable and unmoving like a wall. In Faith in Mind, Sheng says, the principle is neither hurried nor slow. One thought for 10,000 years. One thought refers to the mind which is completely clear and free from attachment. 10,000 years is simply a very long time without interruption. Passages similar to Sheng San's often appear in later descriptions of silent illumination. Okay, so these two guiding views or guiding principles that are shared with us here. Leaving behind the false, return to the true. Make no discriminations between self and others. In contemplation, one's mind should be stable and unmoving, like a wall. Neither hurried nor slow. One thought for 10,000 years. Master Shi Chuang Ching Chu was another master whose approach prefigured that of Master Hung Chi Cheng Chu. He lived on a mountain called Shishuang Stone Frost for 20 years. And, with all these different names, it can really be maybe easy to get lost in the sauce, so to speak, or, what's the deal with all these different names and people and concepts, right? But the valuable part of it, at least for me, is not those people as an individual, but that these names are pointing to records and teachings and guidances and a lineage that has been continuously going along for, Master Shi Chuang Ching Chu lived from 805 to 888. So it's not that we're kind of picking up these spiritual ideas or what have you, and kind of putting them together and working with them, but that this is a really deep lineage that has been able to sustain itself and continue into the modern era. And that's what strikes me deeply about that, is that there's this ancestry there that we can touch into as practitioners, as followers of Chan, people who are concerned about the gateless gate. And if you want to take it to the level of kind of looking into them, that's also wonderful. But it's not necessary. It's just to understand that this is a lineage and an ancestry. So, Master Shi Shuang Ching Chu lived on a mountain called Shishuang, which means stone frost, for 20 years. His disciples sat continuously, even sleeping in the upright position. In their stillness, they looked like so many dead tree stumps. Thus they were named the Dry Wood Sangha. Shi Shuang had two famous pieces of advice. One was to sit Chan. Fix your mind on one thought for 10,000 years. The other was let yourself be like cold ashes or dry wood. Hung Chi, the founder of Silent Illumination Chan, studied for a while with Chan master Ku Mu. He was called Ku Mu, dry wood, because when he sat, his body resembled a block of dry wood. In the hands of Hung Chi, this practice evolved into what he called silent illumination. He describes silent sitting thusly: your body sits silently. Your mind is quiescent, unmoving. This is genuine effort in practice. Body and mind are at complete rest. The mouth is so still that moss grows around it. Grass sprouts from the tongue. Do this without ceasing, cleansing the mind until it gains the clarity of an autumn pool, bright as the moon illuminating the evening sky. In another place, Hung Chi said, in the silent sitting, whatever realm may appear, the mind is very clear to all the details, yet everything is where it originally is, in its own place. The mind stays on one thought for 10,000 years, yet does not dwell on any forms, inside or outside. So how is silent illumination different from what Hui Nang criticizes as observing mind and contemplating purity? What Hui Nang refers to is a method of samadhi that lacks wisdom. Or more accurately, samadhi is not a method, it is a consequence or a goal of practice. It has no space, no time, and no sense of environment. Silent illumination differs from samadhi practice in that while it keeps the mind still, which is the silent aspect, it clarifies the inner as well as the outer states, the illumination aspect. Samadhi is silent but not illuminating. In silent illumination, the mind does not abide anywhere. Nothing, not even samadhi, is dwelt on. In the deep level of silent illumination, the mind is not influenced by or disturbed by the environment. Not being fixed in samadhi, the mind is in a bright state of illumination. This is what the meditator works continually to maintain in silent illumination practice. And now, Karuna, this may relate to your question yesterday, right? About the story of the monk or the man who fell into samadhi, this deep absorption state. So that having the silent aspect, but not having the illumination aspect. So I've heard this also called like a stone Buddha. And, people will be endeavoring to have like these blackouts, long periods of time when they just black out and then come back. But this is not what we're talking about in Chan or Zen sitting meditation of just sitting or just breathing, just being aware. So there's not a goal of samadhi because even samadhi is not to be dwelt on. So that insight, that illumination is there right off the bat. And it's a practice of insight. It's an insight practice. Samadhi will happen, but you don't dwell on it. You don't get stuck on it. Or you might fall into it, then you continue your practice. You don't fall into stillness. You don't get stuck into it. So nothing, even samadhi, is dwelt on. And that puts kind of a not a place of equality necessarily, because we're all going to have different experiences in our meditation and our mind, and some people have a different neurochemical situation going on. But it's lovely because the practice is to not dwell on anything. That means that even if you have a very high special meditation experience, or you're a beginner meditator entering the path, the The practice is to not dwell. So you don't have to worry about some, how am I going to get to this higher level, or how long is it going to take for me to be on the same level as this teacher or this group of people, so I can feel equal. So it gets rid of that superiority and inferiority complex, the nature of it, the insight-based nature of it. The practice is to not dwell with whatever is here and now. Doesn't matter if you're having a super special meditation experience or not. Don't dwell on that. Illuminate it. That is to be not influenced or disturbed by the environment, not being fixed in samadhi. The mind is in a bright state of illumination. This is what the meditator works continually to maintain in silent illumination practice. So keeping the mind still, and we usually use a meditation method to do that. So we grab a hold of a meditation method, counting the breath, can be chanting a mantra, Namo Guan Yin Pusa, Namo Guan Shu Yin Pusa, Namo Amitofo. It can be mala beads, counting the breath, observing the breath. Could be doing metta. Okay, but it's that stillness to place the mind in that place of quiescence, or the field of cessation, to bring up this field of cessation. You can use metta, you can use a mantra, you can focus on your breathing, whatever, but it's this field of unentanglement and cessation. So that silent aspect, then the illumination aspect. Don't dwell on anything. It's detachment. It's generosity, to give up, to let go. This is important, this is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. Not dwelling. So this is what the meditator works continually to maintain in silent illumination practice. To understand silent illumination Chan, it is important to understand that while there are no thoughts, the mind is still very clear, very aware. Both the silence, Mo, and the illumination, Chao, must be there. According to Hung Chi, when there is nothing going on in one's mind, one is aware that nothing is happening. If one is not aware, this is just Chan sickness, not the state of Chan. So in this state, the mind is transparent. In a sense, it is not completely accurate to say there is nothing present, because the transparent mind is there. But it is accurate in the sense that nothing can become an attachment or an obstruction. At this stage, the mind is without form or feature. Power is present, but its function is to fill the mind with illumination, like the sun shining everywhere. Hence, silent illumination is the sitting meditation, the So-chan, in which there is nothing moving, but the mind is bright and illuminated. Does anyone have any questions or comments about silent illumination practice, or this silent illumination Chan, Mo Chao? Comments or questions? Silent illumination, Nikki said, silent illumination is a good way to gain inspiration. Okay. For me, it very much is, or the whole Zen perspective of not relying upon different levels, different attainments. How do I get to this jhana? How do I get to this special meditation experience? And then I'll be a stream enterer or something like that. I mean that is here in Chan. We are talking about training the mind, developing the mind, cultivating the mind, and to be in a state of to go from a complicated mind to a simple mind, from a simple mind to a unified mind, and from a unified mind to no mind. So it is there, but also the practice and the realization of the path is not grasping on any level or any attainment. And then that's how those things come about. So for me, I find it to be very inspiring because if someone sets up levels for it, then I tune out pretty right away. I don't want to be involved with that. Not to rely on overthinking, but rather to rely on the meditation method. The overthinking may be there, but that's not your guiding view. That's not your principle. That's not what you take refuge in. Take refuge in the meditation method that you apply. Let's continue. So, Koan and Hua To Chan. Koan and Hua To Chan. A koan is a story. Many people have heard about this, a Zen story, right? A koan. A koan is a story of an incident between a master and one or more disciples, which involves an understanding or experience of the enlightened mind. The incident usually, but not always, involves dialogue. When the incident is remembered and recorded, it becomes a public case, which is the literal meaning of the term. Often, what makes the incident worth recording is that, as the result of the interchange, a disciple had an awakening experience, an experience of enlightenment. So we'll now listen to one of these koans. Master Joshu was asked by a monk, "Does a dog have Buddha nature?" To which the master replied, "Wu," meaning nothing. As koans go, this is a basic one, possibly the most famous on record. Here is another koan also involving Joshu. Joshu had a disciple who met an old woman on the road and asked her, "How do I get to Mount Tai?" She said, "Just keep going." As the monk started off, he heard the old lady remark, "He really went." Afterwards, the disciple mentioned this to Joshu, who said, "I think I'll go over there and see for myself." When he met her, Joshu asked the same question, and she said the same thing. "Just keep going." As Joshu started off, he heard the old lady say again, "He really went." When Joshu returned, he said to the assembly, "I have seen through that old lady." What did Joshu find out about the old lady? What is the meaning of this lengthy and obscure koan? No cheat codes here. Around the time of the Sung dynasty, 960 to 1276, Chan masters began using recorded koans as a subject of meditation for their disciples. The practitioner was required to investigate the meaning of the historical koan. In his attempts to penetrate the meaning of the koan, the student has to abandon knowledge, experience, and reasoning, since the answer is not accessible to these methods. They must find the answer by san koan, by investigating the koan. This requires their sweeping from their consciousness everything but the koan and eventually generating the doubt sensation, which is a strong sense of wonder and an intense desire to know the meaning of the koan. Closely related but not identical to the koan is the huato. A huato, literally meaning head of the spoken word, is a question that a meditator asks themselves. What is Wu, or who am I? Are commonly used huatos. In the huato practice, the meditator devotes their full attention to repeatedly, incessantly asking the question, who am I? What is Wu? The koan and the huato methods are similar in a sense that the meditator tries to arouse the great doubt sensation in order to eventually shatter it and awaken to enlightenment. So this great doubt, this great wonder, this great curiosity. What is my true face? What is nothing? Chan Master Tahui Sung Kao was one of the greatest advocates of huato practice. From his record of sayings, he maintained that sitting meditation was very necessary to settle the wandering mind and bring about samadhi. It is only then that the student can effectively use the koan or huato. Even though koan and huato practice can be done while walking, standing, or even laying down, its fundamental basis is still so-chan, or sitting meditation. This also applies to silent illumination practice. So I've heard it said from more experienced monastics who've worked with this practice, they will start with something like counting the breath or chanting a mantra or focus at mindfulness of breathing. And once the mind settles and calms and settle the wandering mind and bring about this state of general absorption, general calm, then they step into, or the capacity is there to step into silent illumination or huato practice, something like that, but especially silent illumination. Because it's very difficult to practice or to express your insight when the mind is wandering around and confused, even though the insight is there, even though you have some insight, some wisdom. It's very difficult to access or be in relationship to, practice with, when you don't have a sense of samadhi, or the mind's somewhat concentrated, the mind is somewhat relaxed. Now you can apply your insight meditation practice, your silent illumination, or huato. Try huato as well. But we can say the foundation of whatever method you make use of is going to be the simplest, most basic, most wholesome, standard way of meditating. Follow your breathing, practice metta, go for a walk, and practice mindfulness of walking, mindfulness of breathing, mindfulness of the body. So it is only then that the student can effectively use the koan or huato. Even though koan and huato practice can be done while walking, standing, or even laying down, its fundamental basis is still sitting meditation. If, through sitting meditation, a student's mind becomes very peaceful and stable, the application of the koan or the huato may cause the rise of the great doubt, the great wonder. This doubt is not the ordinary doubt of questioning the truth of an assertion. Okay? This doubt is not the ordinary doubt of questioning the truth of an assertion. And if you're not looking to assertions or claims for truth, then you don't have to be so mixed up in it. It's like this, it's like that, so what? Coming back to the meditation method, then you're not going to confuse this sense of doubt of, well, wait a minute, is what you're saying actually true? Are you actually a monk? Am I doing this right? Is this a conspiracy? Right? These assertions. Well, so what? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. What's the deal? Go back to your meditation method. Go back to your practice. Okay? Who cares? So if we can have that energy about who cares when it comes to these assertions, these kind of dualistic based assertions and ideas, then we'll have a lot more flexibility in how we can focus on our practice. Right? So anyway, this doubt is not the ordinary doubt. It's not like a skepticism, but rather it is the doubt that arises out of sitting meditation, investigating Chan, investigating the gateless gate, investigating the way. The resolution or the working through of the koan or huato hinges on nurturing the great doubt, also wonder, this great curiosity, this great openness. Because the nature of the question cannot be resolved by logic, they must begin by continually returning to the question and in the process clear their mind of everything except the great doubt. Eventually, this accumulated doubt mass grows bigger and bigger, and can disappear in one of two ways. Due to the lack of concentration or energy, the meditator will not be able to sustain the doubt and it will dissipate. Or the meditator can persist until their doubt is like a hot ball of iron stuck in their throat. In this case, the doubt mass will eventually disappear in an explosion. Very interesting stuff. If the explosion has enough energy, it is possible that the student will experience Chan, see Buddha nature, become enlightened. If not, there will probably still be some attachment in their mind. It is necessary and important for a master to confirm their experience, since the student, with rare exceptions, cannot do that themselves. Even as great a master as Tuhui did not penetrate sufficiently into his first experience. His master Yuan Wu told him, "You have died, but you have not come back to life." He was confirmed on his second experience. So what is a true experience? It takes an adept master to tell. If they are not a genuine master, they won't know the difference between a true and false enlightenment. Even though Chan talks about non-reliance on words and language, guiding concepts and views are still very important in the course of your practice. Even though you should not become attached to words and language, you still need them to get the message of Buddha Dharma. In Chan, in Zen, this idea is called borrowing the teachings to awaken the principle. Had Hui Nang never heard the verse from the Diamond Sutra, "Give rise to mind while abiding nowhere," he would not have experienced his initial awakening. Had he only held on to those words he heard, he would not have attained enlightenment. Chan takes the teachings as the finger pointing to the moon. If there were no finger, no one would know where the moon is. If everyone just held on to the finger and did not see where it pointed, then the finger would be useless. But if people truly see the moon, the finger is no longer necessary. It is because people cannot calm their minds that the practice of sitting meditation is needed. Even though people engage in practice, they may still be unable to maintain concentration and stability. So, continual practice of Chan meditation is needed. We can say that even though Chan is not necessarily the result of sitting practice, by engaging in sitting practice, the power of samadhi generated will be a good foundation for enlightenment. However, if your practice is very loose and lacks correct guiding views, you will never enter the gate of Chan. All right, let's spend some time entering the gate of Chan together. So make sure that you're comfortable and stable. Simple position. Yeah, we can just keep it simple. This is a time as we hear the sound of the bell, to be aware of our breathing and to invite this field of uninvolvement and this field of unentanglement to become primary. So that is uninvolved, just sitting, breathing, and being aware, and uninvolved even with that. So listen to 3 sounds of the bell together. please be diligent in your practice as far as you are able to take every moment and all the conditions that you find yourself in daily as conditions for practice, conditions for mindfulness, conditions maybe for listening to a Dharma talk. This Discord is just like our online meditation center, so I know many people watching on YouTube, but you can see this group call here. So when we do have these sessions, it's really wonderful if we can have the people who are showing up here to be here for the full sessions, hour and a half, you're making that commitment, please make sure that you're here in the Discord. And if you can make arrangements to share your camera, then that's wonderful. That's really a joy that we can experience that together. And I know that of course, I'm inspired by the people who are joining here in the Discord, and I get to know people over time, but also I have a strong feeling that the way that this is formatted for people who watch on YouTube, they also see the community here, and they feel inspired and supported as well. So if you're someone who's watching on YouTube, even if you're not super tech savvy, please don't be shy to get the Discord app for the purpose of using it to join in these events and to be here with us, so that if you do have a question or something you want to share with your voice, that it'll be very possible. Thank you, friends. Let's continue. And should be likely that tomorrow at 6 we will have a gathering at that time as well. All right? Goodbye. Be happy. Thank you. And YouTubers, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your mindfulness, your happiness, your peace, and your wisdom. And subscribe to your mindfulness as well, all right? Okay, bye everyone. And a link to join the Discord is in the description of the YouTube, okay? So you can try to join us. And you TikTokers, let's see who's here. Why do we have 80 people in this TikTok stream, huh? I want to know. Why do we have 80 people here on the TikTok? Who's in here? What are you doing in here? Oh my goodness. Oh no. What do you worship? Yep.